About the debates. I don't want to talk horse race, who's up, who's down. I think Tulsi Gabbard, this is her shot. I mean, I hate to say it, she's not going to win the presidency. That's just the reality. But if you get a viral moment that actually seeps into the discussion, I don't think CNN or them would replay it over and over. But if she gets a moment where the audience really cheers and she gets a zinger in about, basically attacking some of the people on stage. It could make a difference. At least rise her in the polls a little bit, maybe an injection of cash so she could be eligible for the second debate. What are you looking for? Because I think Bernie Sanders' biggest mistake in 2016, and it was David versus two Goliaths when you're facing the Clinton machine, was he kind of went to a knife fight holding a spoon. He kind of tries to be oh, I want to run a positive campaign and win on the issues. That's great, but you also have to be firm and say, yeah, Joe Biden, you are a servant to Wall Street. That's not a personal attack. That's the truth. Joe, he can't just say, Joe and I differ on NAFTA, on trade agreements. No, you got to say Joe Biden
on touching little girls.
Yes, Joe Biden has supported every toxic trade deal that has destroyed the working class of America. And I think Tulsi Gabbard, who is from Hawaii and is, aloha and all that stuff, also needs to be a little bit more firm because you're not the debate moderators are not going to put in facts like you're giving. It's up to Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard to. What are you looking for in the debates?
Well, I'll say clearly in the debates, I'm cheering for Bernie and Tulsi. And I think you're right that they are probably going to be a little careful. If you look at the rhetoric of both of their campaigns, they've avoided attacking too many other opponents. But I think they're going to have to take the gloves off.
Actually, I don't know if you saw Tulsi defended Joe Biden on Twitter.
Yeah.
Which I didn't quite get.
Well, no, because she's doing that whole aloha thing. I get it. Look, there are some things I strongly disagree with Tulsi on. No one's perfect, and
Bernie.
Bernie too. I mean, Bernie's a little different. I mean, he's done some stuff in the past. He's supported the war in Libya, but a lot of people did, and that's not unique. So you can criticize that. There are some things about Tulsi. I think she's really refreshing in a lot of ways, and as good as Bernie is, and I think he actually has a very serious chance of winning the presidency. I think Tulsi, unfortunately, doesn't have a very realistic chance, but it's very important that she's running because she is running a foreign policy-based platform, which is unheard of for progressives. For me, as a journalist who focuses a lot on that, it's amazing. She's making anti-war politics the key message of her campaign as a military veteran who has served in Iraq, the Iraq War twice, and seen people die in the senseless, pointless war for empire that did not result in any freedom or democracy for anyone. All it did was help large corporations and the Bush administration get off like bandits. Mm-hmm. So for her, it's personal. That message resonates with people, and she can speak to even Republicans who might be more conservative on social issues, but who are intuitively anti-war and maybe anti-big business. So I think even though I disagree with some of her views on things like India and some other stuff, I think at the same time she is playing a very progressive role and is helping to push people to the left and is actually talking about what we've been talking about, the regime change war in Syria, the regime change war in Libya, regime change against North Korea, which potentially could have brought nuclear apocalypse upon Hawaii and other parts of the country. So it's very refreshing to see her. Bernie, I think Bernie's been great. And again, no one's perfect. He's in the very limited confines of the U.S. formal political system. He's the best you're going to get.
I also think if Bernie goes full comrade, Bernie knows I got to pick off 5 to 10% of the establishment vote,
which he can easily do. Look,
I don't know about easily because I think I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but you tell me why 24 people are running. 10 of them have actually more than 10 have zero chance. I'm not saying there was a meeting and let's run a crap load of people just to make sure, because at the end of the day, it's possible that no one is going to get enough delegates on the first ballot to win the nomination, and then look, they moved the super delegates to the second ballot. So that's speculation, but it is very possible. Even Biden cannot get enough delegates because if the donors split up the money, that all these people like Gillibrand and Booker and Hickenlooper and all these people can continue running through most of the primary, you could have enough people getting 3%, 4%, where there's not enough delegates to win on the first ballot.
I forgot some of these candidates even exist. Really, who is that? But no, I think you're right, and it's not a conspiracy at all. We have evidence. We have the past election showing that there were literally meetings where they talked about how they could kill the Bernie campaign.
They're doing it this time.
Yeah, I'm sure
there was secret meetings in Washington and New York with Nancy Pelosi was there, Chuck Schumer, Terry McAuliffe, Neera Tanden, and others. They weren't, what were they meeting about? Health care for all? Come on. Some of my viewers get mad at me, but I can't just, I got to be honest. I don't see Elizabeth Warren becoming the nominee. If she was, I personally, I'm not telling you what to do, because some people are like, stop telling me what to do. I personally think it's a little extreme to be like, oh, this is Hillary Clinton. I think Elizabeth Warren is far and away much better than Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, this and that. And I don't think we should be so extreme where, like, listen, I want Bernie Sanders. My next would be Tulsi Gabbard. But if it was Warren, like, she's progressive enough on economics that I would look the other way on, the foreign policy and that terrible stuff. And she's been MIA on a lot of important things. With that said, she's terrible on foreign policy. And nobody calls her on it because, like, they've dubbed her, like, the I have a plan candidate, which, by the way, a lot of her plans Bernie Sanders already had. But, like, because she puts it on her website, suddenly it was hers. What are your thoughts on Warren? Because it seems to me like the strategy right now is for the establishment to prop up Warren, take percentage points away from Bernie, hopefully eliminate Bernie, and then they're just going to attack Elizabeth Warren.
I agree with most of what you said. One thing, I don't think you're going to turn the other cheek, or turn the other, whatever you said, you're going to look away. No one's going to look away from her weaknesses, and she has many. I agree that she's not the same as Hillary Clinton. Calling her a neoliberal is not fair. Joe Biden is completely a neoliberal. Yeah. Kamala Harris is a neoliberal. These are people funded by Wall Street who will help privatize the economy. They might claim maybe they'll do something in healthcare, but they're not going to support universal healthcare. They are neoliberals in the sense of they believe in the free market and free trade. Elizabeth Warren is decidedly not that. Now, Elizabeth Warren is also decidedly not Bernie Sanders. Right. Bernie Sanders, regardless of his weaknesses, is way better than Elizabeth Warren.
I agree.
Elizabeth Warren, who used to be a Republican, and again, I'm not anti-Warren. She has some important ideas.
I actually think Bernie hasn't gone as far as her on breaking up Amazon and things like that.
On some things. The thing about Warren, though, is Warren represents a kind of, on the right in Europe, there's this thing that people refer to as the social right. Now, I don't want to say social nationalism because that's similar to National Socialism, right? That is fascism. Like, the thing is, there is a kind of it's often Catholic kind of style conservatism in Europe that believes in supporting social security and supporting the poor. They're also anti-LGBT, anti-abortion, anti-women's rights. Of course, I oppose all those things 100%. But the thing is, we in the U.S. are so used to both conservatives, both Democrats and Republicans, the establishment wings have always been neoliberals. They've always been like, privatize everything, free the market. Now, what's happening is there's a kind of rise on the right here in the U.S. of some Republicans who actually are criticizing Amazon, who are criticizing billionaires, and that is a kind of social conservatism. So if you listen to Tucker Carlson, for instance, he endorsed Elizabeth Warren's economic program, and he'll say things like, why do we have big banks controlling our economy? We should support blah, 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 the common man. It's a kind of fake populism, and of course I don't support it. I'm a progressive, I'm on the left. I support progressive, liberal, social rights values in terms of, access to abortion, women's rights, LGBT rights, 100%. The thing is, Warren is kind of softening. She's trying to appeal to the social conservatives. Mm-hmm. She's softening some of her, thing about socials, we use the word in different ways, but she's softening some of the civil rights issues, like women's rights, abortion. I mean, she still supports those things, but she's campaigning and trying to win over some of the social conservatives who like Tucker Carlson and who say, maybe I don't agree on abortion, and maybe I'm a conservative Christian, but why are these banks controlling our economy?
Well, she's also softening is an understatement. Totally just not talking about Medicare for all anymore.
No, exactly. So
Mhm.
which is why Tucker Carlson went on TV and endorsed her economic program. Also, if you look at her economic program, she's essentially it's not a surprise that she was a Republican. She still kind of is a conservative in her values, but she's anti-big business. And there are conservatives who are anti-big business, right?
She
And
believes in a free market that's regulated.
so what she's trying to do really is take Bernie Sanders' entire program, but make a conservative version of it that can appeal to some Republicans, which I think is kind of dangerous. But I think it's obviously still better than the free the market Biden types who are like Wall Street's good.
The problem with Warren, and this is not as much ideology, but it's more strategy, and why I like Bernie way better. I also think Bernie's just more progressive. Bernie recognizes...
But it's not even, sorry to cut you off, it's not just a matter of progressiveness. The difference is that Bernie Sanders comes out of the socialist tradition.
Right.
He's talking about socialism. His whole
Honestly,
point,
he's not even talking about traditional socialism.
No, of course.
Right.
And according to European socialists, he would be seen as a moderate, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not that far left. The point, though, is that I'm talking about the tradition. These are important. Warren comes out of the Republican Party. She's talking about, I want a free playing field for local businesses. Bernie's saying something different. Bernie's saying capitalism is inherently an unequal system in which the elite capitalists, the 1% who control the economy, they continue to get more wealthy, and the working class continues to get more and more poor. That's an inherent contradiction within the capitalist system, and we have to use state intervention, state control of certain industries to prevent that inherent contradiction. Those are two very different worldviews. Even though they might have similar economic policies, they're different ideologies. And what I'm saying is that Warren's worldview is, even though she has progressive economic policies that I support, her worldview is actually, her economic worldview is pretty conservative. It's all about regulation. It's not about creating, it's not like Jeremy Corbyn. I'm not expecting Bernie to go there because we're still a very right-wing country. Jeremy Corbyn in the UK is saying we need to renationalize elements of the industry, renationalize the railways. Why is our transportation system privatized? It should be owned by the government.
Mm-hmm.
Why is our education system being privatized? Bernie Sanders is trying to introduce, he's still, again, compared to much of the world, he's moderate, but in the context of the US, this is, in the electoral political system, this is as good as it gets right now, and the idea is he's going to move things to the left so they continue to move to the left, instead of every election moving further and further to the right. He's beginning a conversation where people can say, wait, why should our utilities be privatized? Why shouldn't the government provide, like they provide water, and they're trying to privatize the water system, why shouldn't they provide the transportation grid?
Well, they're not necessarily providing clean water, but that's...
Well, of course.
Yeah.
No, but the point is, because we've been through so many years where the idea is, oh, the government can't govern well, the government can't... No, it's like, if the government has funding, and actually we have a democratic, accountable government led by progressives, then yes, we should, like many places, not just in Europe, but throughout the world, we should have a government that can provide us transportation for low to no cost, paid medical leave and child leave for families, universal health care. These are all programs that not only we should support, but that should be provided by the government with our tax dollars.
But also, Bernie Sanders' proposals, you'll never think about it this way, but socialist programs are really economically conservative in a way. Because conservatives want the best return on investment. They want efficient business practices. Well, if you fund healthcare, you have better health outcomes, and overall the costs go down for the system. Education. If you make education free for your populace, you have a better educated and skilled citizenry, which, I mean, Finland has shown this, and other countries, which you have a stronger economy with a. So I don't mean conservative in a way like, Bernie's trying to make a buck off the people. I'm saying like you have a stronger educated and a stronger economy. Like Germany, I was there. Their economy is pretty decent. It's also pretty neoliberal, but they got healthcare, education is affordable, and you have, as a result, better outcomes. So it's the same principle. What I think is primarily different about Bernie than Warren, and not just Bernie versus Warren, but these two schools of thought, Bernie is not naive. So Bernie has, I don't think it's just a slogan. He understands he could get elected and nothing will happen. Because even if, let's say, the Democratic Party took back the House and the Senate, you think, Speaker Pelosi and like Senate leader Chuck Schumer are just going to be like, yes, President Sanders, let's do Medicare for all. Hell no. They'll fight him every step of the way because they'll still be controlled by the donors. So Bernie understands Warren can become president, but if you don't actually galvanize the troops, nothing's going to get done. Nothing, because the system is more powerful than a president.
Absolutely.
So when Bernie says, and I thought this was brilliant in 2016, I hope he talks about it more. No, the first thing I'm going to do is not go try to make a deal with Mitch McConnell. Hell no. I'm going to go to Mitch and be like, hey, look outside the window. There's thousands of people, and we're going to put you out of office. Which, it could happen. Eric Cantor was thrown out of office. I think Paul Ryan resigned probably because he saw the writing on the wall for him. Joe Crowley put out of office. When more people are woken up, especially young people, you show up to the midterms, you have a chance. So I think Bernie is talking about I think revolution scares people, but we need a galvanization of young people, and not even just young people, but people who have been so disaffected. Majority of the country doesn't vote. So I think that's the difference. But to me, I think I think Warren is a bigger threat to Bernie than Biden. I think Biden's going to fall, but I think Warren is a threat, not even in the fact that she would beat him, because I don't think Warren will ultimately rise permanently above Bernie, but take away enough votes from Bernie.
You hit the nail on the head. This is what I'm getting at. Again, I'm not anti-Warren, but the thing is, it's not just, what's funny is we spend a lot of time criticizing corporate media for not focusing on policies and focusing only on personalities. And that's true. It's a very valid criticism. But I'm kind of right now actually kind of saying the opposite, that we absolutely should focus on policies, but the individual politics of the person running as a leader are also very important. And Bernie's politics, that's what I'm saying, is that their worldviews, even though they have similar policies, their worldviews are so different. Because Bernie, his message, which I think is the correct message, is that you cannot negotiate with Wall Street. Wall Street is your enemy. Mm-hmm. They're not people that you can try to work and figure out a deal and both sides will benefit from it. No, his point is that...
What are you talking about? Joe Biden told me that, you guys are patriots.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Joe Biden's like, yeah, they're gonna fund me and I'm gonna create universal health care with funding from Goldman Sachs. No, I mean, the thing is, maybe Warren knows
you gotta, that. By the way, I'll say this about Joe Biden. You got to give credit to him. At least Hillary Clinton had the decency to try to hide it.
Yeah.
She didn't want to give up those transcripts. Joe Biden's inviting the press. I mean, they're stooges, but at least to transcribe what he's saying in these fundraisers. We wouldn't know what he's saying. So he's just outwardly like, I don't give a fuck. I'm corrupt.
Well, not just that. I mean, it's his strategy. He's running to the right of Hillary Clinton, and his idea represents the dead end of neoliberal DNC politics, that in order to win an election, you keep tailing so far to the center that now you're on the center right. Mm-hmm. And that's what he's doing. But on this thing on Biden, on Warren and Bernie, the thing is, I see Bernie as not the end, of course, but the beginning of a new era of not just progressive, but socialist politics. Mm-hmm. Going back, it's of course very different, but we had figures like Eugene Debs. And Eugene Debs, ironically...
And Henry Wallace.
Yeah, and Henry Wallace. Ironically, if you look at their platform, they were much more progressive than Bernie today, but that's a reflection of how far right we've moved. The point is that if you had a President Bernie, it would be the beginning of a move toward the left for once, where things would, over time, would move back toward the left instead of to the right. With Warren, I think she would try to implement some of these policies, but you need that from the bottom up swell that you're talking about, because as with any progressive movement in this country, the suffrage movement against apartheid and Jim Crow, the movement against the Vietnam War, these all began as grassroots bottom-up movements. And then later, 20 years later, finally the Democratic Party catches up. So to have that progressive force actually in the White House, even with all of the other institutions, and Bernie he might not have the Senate. He probably wouldn't have the Senate, and he'd probably have the House. But so his hands would be tied to some extent. But the point is that he will fight in a way, like you're saying, because he recognizes that there's an intractable conflict. That even though his policies are social democratic, even though he's not that radical, his worldview is correct. There is an irreconcilable, intractable conflict between capital, between the large capitalist interests, those who own industry, and the working class, that cannot be resolved through simply trying to find some kind of agreement, trying to be nice. He recognizes that the 1% is our enemy, and you have people on the far right who are trying to say immigrants are our enemy. No, we have an enemy. It is Wall Street. It is the capitalist class. And if you don't say that openly, you're deceiving your entire base. And Bernie recognizes that. So that is a very, regardless of his weaknesses, that is an extremely welcome development. And that's why, frankly, I also think he's one of the only people. I don't think Tulsi will make it far, but I think Bernie is one of the only people who can actually beat Trump. I frankly do not think Warren could beat Trump in an election. I think that message, the lesson of the last election is you need a countervailing message to Trumpism. That message is too weak under Warren. The message needs to be Trump is trying to distract the entire country with these scapegoats like immigrants, like LGBT rights, like women. No, we have an enemy, and we need to state that enemy very clearly. The enemy is the 1%. It's the billionaire class. And if you don't say that openly, you're not going to be able to beat Trumpism.
I just want to get you on the record so that if, hopefully not, Biden is the nominee and this inevitably happens,
Biden will lose.
We'll save the tape. Do you agree with this graphic?
That's great. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the Grayzone needs graphic design work. Colin is great. So I see the iceberg. I mean, it's right ahead. Joe Biden, you wait till Donald Trump, if Joe Biden is the nominee, starts calling him NAFTA Joe, TPP Joe, Sleepy NAFTA, I mean, I just showed Joe Biden in 2016, while he was vice president, was still pushing for NAFTA. Where is that? Right here. That's why security of the TPP remains a top priority for our administration. I mean, he's Hillary Clinton. You won't put it as crudely. He's Hillary Clinton with a penis. And I think he's worse than Hillary Clinton, to tell you the truth, because there's a longer record.
He's worse.
Yeah. So I think it's the Titanic, and I think Bernie said it right. They'd rather go down to the Titanic as long as they have first class.
Well, I've been saying, and you have me on record, Biden would lose to Trump. I'm convinced. This idea that he's some populist and people in the working class, no, they don't care about Biden. There's nothing interesting about him. He offers nothing new. And unlike Trump, as awful as Trump is, at least Trump is sometimes funny. I've never joked from anything Biden ever said. He's not entertaining. He's creepy. He keeps touching little 10-year-old girls. Like, what? This guy is so weird. And I'll go down also saying this. I'll repeat it again and again, and I will until 2020. Biden is diet Trump. That's all he is. His policies are not that different from Trump. And frankly, even if he could beat Trump, as he said, there would be no fundamental change.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.